What's funny about the Zelda franchise is how different every single entry is, but how the fanbase will still neatly organize them into categories. For example, is the game 2D and top-down, or is it 3D? Does it have on-foot navigation in a very dense world, or a vehicle for taking you around a large diluted one? Is the game enjoyable? And yet, there exists a Zelda game that has tricky answers to all of these questions. Spirit Tracks on the DS, a 2.5D Zelda game that has 3D models with 2D gameplay but altering camera perspectives, and uses the segmented areas of play like Wind Waker and Skyward Sword, but does not allow you to freely roam that world outside your vehicle, and even beyond Phantom Hourglass, has select predetermined pathways. You might even say it's on rails.
Enough!
I think you've already put together that this is kind of whack for the series, but going further, it's the Zelda game most modernized to our reality. It's the only Zelda threequel directly following and referencing the 2 games before it, and it's the Zelda game that exposes us to the most amount of Zelda as a character, while also killing her in the first 30 minutes of the game, which, yeah, it's the only game to do that too. But the weirdest thing about The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks to me is how monotonous and messy of a game it is, yet my undying adoration for it persists, to the point where I wanted to revisit it and set things straight. With Echoes coming out soon, I've been thinking a lot about the last time the series let us play as Zelda, as much of an exaggeration as that may be, and mentally I've evaporated. Collected myself back to a time when the biggest argument in the Zelda franchise was trains.
However, with this release, it seems to me that Nintendo is, forgive my pun, running out of steam. I mean, what can Link do after trains? You know, it's kind of the end of the line. I suppose you could have him riding on gigantic winged beasts.
Now you know this game is truly in the same lineage as Wind Waker because it was releasing to a highly skeptical crowd. Haters will say it's Phantom Hourglass 2. I know I just called it a threequel, so let me be clear before the comments go nutty. Technically, Spirit Tracks is its own thing. It really doesn't make a trilogy out of the other 2 as much as it does the Toon Link trio, but it's the same engine, style, it's set 100 years in the future. The game opens with a character who was in Phantom Hourglass and Wind Waker, which for the record is also kind of whoa! The game is basically going to be structured the same, and there's little things here that are very much for the Phantom Hourglass players. So Spirit Tracks already had the job of assuring fans who didn't like that game that it could do better, but in addition, Train. Some saw Trains as too advanced for the fantasy in Zelda. Zelda set in a more modern period has always been kind of a funny joke within the fan base, maybe especially sensitive at a time when the biggest games on the market were.
I just am so tired of going on a forum and everyone complaining how a train is futuristic. I was reading a comment on YouTube saying, "What's the next Zelda gonna have, a flying car?" I'm clever. No, Zelda's not gonna have a flying car because Zelda's not futuristic, and a train isn't futuristic. And I don't think a train is pushing any boundaries in Zelda technology. There's been much more advanced stuff.
Listen, my man Jammo was spitting in 2009, okay? We can all laugh at the crustiness of this clip, as many do looking back so far on the internet, but he's right. There's always been these elements. If you can have a steamboat or a water, I think is this like a fallopian tube? Then what is so out of place about a train? Why was the Zelda fan base so scared of new ideas? Why we gotta throw a tantrum every time the team doesn't make the exact same game? And every time they do. I think what people were trying to say is not that they didn't want Zelda technology advancing too much, but that they wanted it ideally farther away from us as a civilization, because introducing trains is, "Hi, I'd like to file a copyright strike, please." Look at this. Oh my god, it is raw beauty. 3 wonderful dimensions, 1 Toon Link, a whole ass train, and then he turns around and he's got the... Oh! If people had any doubts, all they simply needed to do was see this to understand that this newest Zelda game is here to ruffle feathers. Yes, it's on the DS, yes, it has trains, and yes, it borrows from Phantom Hourglass. But it's still gunning for the top spot, and I am now 1000% positive that this game is going to revitalize the Zelda formula stronger than ever before. Let's go. So the game opens with Link sleeping. Today is a special day, and he's going to see the princess because he's going to become an engineer. Not for another 14 years, he's not. Guys, hear me out. The Phantom Hourglass engine isn't bad, and I'm going to save talking about it at length should I ever decide to cover that game, but in terms of controls, I actually don't mind it. I see them as the evolution of point and click. At best, they will allow for some very unique puzzles and items. At worst, some misinputs due to a lack of accuracy and the inability to move when using items. They can be super frustrating, and a lot of people have issues with them. I'm not going to deny that. But Spirit Tracks, and this was also a complaint with Phantom Hourglass, is pretty easy and casual oriented, so it's usually not that big of a deal, usually. What is a big deal? Bees. So you can't kill them now, which is probably good. Save the bees. It is fascinating to see how this game repurposes Tetris Pirates into train people. Even just 5 minutes in, you can tell this game's tone and world is a lot more peaceful, and I'm guessing this is maybe where some people also take issues with trains. Boats are cool. Pirates and religious arcs, canoeing. Oh! It is 10 times more attractive of a concept to Zelda than trains, because trains are the only exciting thing that ever happens with trains is when they get robbed or they go off the rails, and the rest of the time it's Lionel coin bank, Lionel coin. So we must ask ourselves, not if trains are really what the franchise needed, but if it was what the franchise needed directly after Phantom Hourglass.
No.
All right, so the train has 2 speeds, a stop, and a reverse, and a horn, and that is it. That is it. Then you just ride from point A to point B, and you wait. I mean it, you just wait. You cannot tell me that trains make Zelda too futuristic and then have me play a game where half of it is literally just watching this over and over and over. It is a gorgeous environment, impressive for the DS with its 360 ability. The music is an absolute banger, but there's nothing really to do. I would have rather them given us a menu simply due to the amount of your total playtime that will be spent just waiting. Before you say, well, Wind Waker was the same way, you can leave this boat at any time on the Great Sea. You can get out, swim, drown in like 5 seconds. But it helps you to recognize the immensity of the world, the vastness of the Great Sea, and appreciate what the boat is doing for you. There's so many islands to discover and so many ways to discover them, in addition to weather, nighttime, other ships, random octopi travelers. For the Zelda players who've become obsessed with non-linearity, Wind Waker is the cause, not Spirit Tracks. At no point can you freely exit the train, not in front of a provided location. The overworld functions as a menu where your cursor takes minutes to move between options. And there's like 2? Remember that a big selling point to both Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass is the freedom to abandon the main quest at any time and just go see what's out there. So it only becomes more ironic when the game meant to one-up Phantom Hourglass severely cuts down on that level of discovery, a set number of locations with a set number of ways to get there. I'd like to say it gets better too, and it really only slightly does. More of the map opens up, you eventually get a cannon for shooting railroad baddies, then there's things like rabbits and beetle, and you have to avoid the unkillable dark trains, which makes you ride on eggshells. I can't tell if I actually enjoy it or not. Like, am I having fun avoiding these guys? Or is it just me watching my own death 15 seconds before it happens? There is some train combat. The touch cannonballs feature, that sounds like a Twitter insult, returns, but it can get really annoying with how much the camera automatically changes on you. You'll be trying to fight as you go around a corner and the camera takes the enemy actively attacking you out of view. It's way more infuriating when you have a passenger or cargo. This is the main way of unlocking more parts of the railroad, aka shortcuts. Good, because it will save you time when riding, but bad because you have to take the time to run back and forth anyway. God forbid you fail.
Get off my train!
No.
One of the best things I think this game does with the train rides are the boss fights. The only thing is there's 2 of them, the one you are watching right now and a portion of the final boss, which I will show later when I feel like spoiling. This is a really simple shoot the eye boss fight, but it's fun and even more fun the second time around when you have to anticipate its movements. The camera doesn't change and you don't really have to worry about any of the train stuff during the battle. And there are more combat sections in the story that I think are the high points of conducting. I just wish there were more because, again, I like new ideas in Zelda. Somewhat. 12 p.m., bitches. Somewhat contrary to everything I just said, I'm glad we're not on foot. Could we have another game where Link rides through a field on his horse Opona and defeats evil by playing the Song of Sounding? Yeah, and I'm sure it would be fire. But I like that they're trying with Spirit Tracks, and once we get off the train, you're instantly reminded of that when Zelda dies. And rather than it being a whole sad, motivational endeavor, I mean, well, it's that too, the game actually expresses a little bit of humor with it. And she sticks around with Link to be this game's companion. It took 15 entries to get to this. In a franchise named for a character we know so much about, but hardly ever see. She never answers our texts anymore. This is the first time we're gonna get to hang out with Zelda the whole game, and she's hilarious. Toon Zelda is an act. Friendly, bubbly, scared of rats, and more than anything, pissed that she cannot have her body. You get to see all these cute moments of the two working together. She is your voice as Link is silent, but Link is her action as Zelda cannot be seen. A bond you will feel taking full effect once you get to the tower, but let's introduce a few other great characters. You have Angine, the sassy, sarcastic grandmother. Is that Tetra? Burn, the anti-hero, home to one of the better growth arcs in the game. Chancellor Cole, the royal family servant who shockingly is the bad guy. His name is Cole. And the fantastic repurposed Wind Waker originals like the aforementioned Nico, who is actually Nico from Wind Waker, and instead of Gonzo, we have Alfonso. But 1 hour in, it's finally time to understand why this game has triumphed over its older brother. Cue the PTSD.
No, 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 no. Wait. Wait.
Do not fear though, Spirit Tracks said it could do better, and it did. I was nervous when I heard it was a tower. I thought we'd be reclimbing each segment like before. Instead, there is a staircase, a beautiful staircase. Also, no time capacity, so you can take all the time you need, and you will need to because there is one new mechanic, Zelda. As the Phantom, she's going to help a lot with what the typical annoyances would have been last time, but you are now also in charge of controlling two characters. This leads to some excellent cooperative puzzles, which is signature Toon Link, and some easier stealth segments. I do not have strong feelings about the Tower of Spirits. While I prefer it to the timed awful backtracking in the Temple of the Ocean King, controlling two characters sometimes makes the flow of this dungeon go really slow, which I guess is just Spirit Tracks in general. Because is the central dungeon even necessary? The structure of go there, then back here really damages this game's pacing, especially when this is the going. That's kind of Spirit Tracks in a nutshell. You begin to ask yourself a lot, I could do this. Why should I? Why should I sit on the train and wait to arrive when I could just be there? What about making notes on my map provides intrinsic amusement? And why do I need to... Oh my god. Okay, YouTube audience, gather around because it's time for a new segment I call Fumble of the Game today, also known as, I don't think I should say that. Phantom Hourglass has no musical instrument, which is pretty much a staple of the series. I actually think Phantom Hourglass is the only non-multiplayer Zelda game up to that point that didn't have an instrument, but I might be wrong. Don't fact check me. What an easy way to improve the sequel. Let's bring back the instrument, right? Right? Only there's one crucial thing that we are forgetting, and that is that Spirit Tracks is a game made by Nintendo within this time frame. And now it shall suffer the curse of forced interactive gimmick. Yeah, I can blow into the mic to play the flute. Is that the validation you needed, Nintendo? Do you feel seen? I'm so proud of you for making this tech possible. Except you didn't. This is awful, nothing registers, and they'd be like, it has a better chance if you blow soft. Try blowing hard. And then the guy tells me awkwardly I need to try again because the times you'll need to play for the story are rhythm-based. Why did they have to do it twice? See, this one sucks because you have to stand still and hope the mic will work mid-battle, even mid-boss. I see an entire field of leaves and I'm out of breath just looking at it. Nah, the whirlwind is not that fun of an item, but I like the other ones. The sand wand is a satisfying and fun item that could really only work in this type of game, one that's both top-down with touchscreen controls. Yes, they have the rod and a link between worlds, but the puzzles in this game are designed around these sand's non-linear path. It makes getting on top of Zelda a lot easier. Wait, but that one was, why did you? The bow and arrows are fairly standard and you don't get them until oddly late in the game, but I appreciate the precision where the boomerang offers the same amount, if not more, user control, the return of good old line drawing. The problem, as with all of these items, is that you are standing still when using them, and if you're using the boomerang in combat, your enemies are most likely moving as well. So you have to stand still and draw a line through all the enemies you want to hit, and they move around, usually towards you, who cannot move. So it's really only good for puzzles and switches, and even then, hitting a wall is just, like, stupid. I think the whip works much better for mid-range enemies. You can pull it out and tap, sometimes it takes the armor off, that's nice. And I enjoy how you essentially take it after beating the boss that was using it against you. And then the bombs, they are just bombs. Playing through this game, you can definitely tell where Nintendo was listening. The big stuff, of course, smaller things like the items and even just very minor quality of life changes. It only gets interesting when you look at Spirit Tracks and its goal of separating its identity from Phantom Hourglass, and how doing so led back to similar issues. Cutting down on things like unnecessary repetition, and yet designing the whole game around it. Feeling less of a need to prove itself as a Zelda title on the DS, but then integrating system features, and failing at it. Zooming out, I'd honestly say they're about equal. They both have their problems, and they both have things they do extremely well, so why do I, and many others, swing in favor of Spirit Tracks? Maybe it's the excellent dungeon design, the incredibly satisfying bosses, maybe it's the music. Maybe it's just the concept alone is so brand new to Zelda while so familiar to us, and it's something they've never bothered going back to. For how much this game is formatted like its predecessor, its premise creates a completely new personality, a fun one. Or you know what, actually, maybe it's the story. No, it's definitely the story. I mean, this game's story goes unbelievably hard. But before I go yapping about the third act again, let's just get it out of the way because I think by now you probably realize where the thesis is heading. Spirit Tracks is not perfect, not by any means. I don't think it's necessarily the traditional idea of better, but instead far more memorable. For every single issue it has, it's got an element of personality one seat over that makes it totally stand out in the franchise lineup. And I would go a step further to say that includes its issues. Compared to something like Phantom Hourglass, which always had to compete as one of the two Zelda games with boats, especially with the first so beloved, Spirit Tracks has the sincerity of Nintendo doing what they do best and making something original, mostly, but all in good faith. They were actually trying. There's even stuff reminiscent to the far more traditional Zelda experience, including Zelda herself. Lots of Zelda herself. Which means, again, that Spirit Tracks wasn't intended to be any flavor of the week gimmick, but approached with its own goal of being the newest and greatest Zelda game. There's so much more here beyond its unhinged premise as the Zelda with trains. And that is hopefully evident the first time you turn on the game and see that drop-dead gorgeous title screen, or at any point in the following playthrough, you'll just come to love that Nintendo has gotten eccentric with the Zelda formula, but is still totally serious. Of course, there is nowhere this is more evident than in the game's final arc, so that even people playing this entire time on the fence will leave this game with their last memory a fantastic and highly rewarding one. Maybe not. At the height of this game, Link and Zelda will go to confront Cole just as he revives Malladus, the big train bitch. And so you go and get the light arrows, then head to the bad dimension, which you can tell is really bad because it's just miasma and railroads. It's actually Britain 200 years ago. There's loads of dark trains zooming around here, but also tears of light, and when you touch one... Oh my god. Not gonna lie, this had me more bricked than a Wii with Project M. After needing to avoid these guys the entire game, this is so satisfying. Pac-Man could never. Next up is a battle against Train Malladus, following him on tracks. Yes, this is the other train boss fight, and yes, there will be a bajillion phases of bosses in this ending. I guess they really wanted to, like, test you in all aspects of the game. It kinda reminds me of Twilight Princess, when you go to fight Ganondorf, then again as a wolf, then again on a horse, then again because we said so. And like, I promised I wasn't this bad when I first played the game. I blame half of it on the Wii U perspective and the other half on rails not letting me escape easily, you know, not like a boat, a horse, a bird. There's a scene after this where Angie is gearing up for battle and Link and Zelda say, nah, we've got it. And they've grown a lot, and it's nice to see them with this relationship. After clearing that entire tower together, you do get a sense that they can accomplish anything, not escort missions. Oh look, more Twilight Princess comparisons. I do have to praise all the scenes here though. They are super fluid, and even though some of the fighting is annoying, I'm on the edge of my seat. Not to mention the music feels like everything is burning down around me. The emotions are frantically switching. Not 10 seconds after freeing Zelda's body from Malladus, we're back to Crisis because she can't re-enter and Malladus is about to. But then Burn comes to buy her some time and Zelda focuses, offering a prayer to Tetra, which is very interesting, kind of backwards from where we first started. And she does finally get her body back, but you can't even celebrate because immediately after, Burn is killed by Malladus, and now we're pissed. And you can't even be mad for that long either because then Malladus consumes Cole, and it's just like, what the f right now, bro's out of control. Diet Ganon. It kind of cheapens the whole argument when you fight for this game's uniqueness, but that's not what's the most upsetting thing here. Second hardest part in Spirit Tracks, and also making it really hard to praise the touch controls in this game. And then they had the audacity to put a Spirit Flute segment immediately after, like, bro, and yes, I failed it. But this right here, this is what we came for. Best song in the whole game, great use of 2 screens, paying homage all the way back to Wind Waker's final boss. And I love when you go to deal the final blow that Zelda comes to help as she has done this whole game, this time with her own physical body. Malladus is defeated, the spirits go home, Zelda and Link hold hands. The final boss is far more epic than it has any business being between its many phases. There's death, there's love, and there's especially love over here because I goddamn love this game. Aside from how we feel about this game, I'll say one thing in closing. It is awfully overlooked. It sold just over half of what Phantom Hourglass did, and I have a few theories why. Nintendo wasn't marketing it as much, and Skyward Sword's very early artwork teasing a new console Zelda may have overshadowed it. Phantom Hourglass drew a lot of criticism, and maybe people were reluctant to give another DS game a go, especially the one that has trains in it, but I still think they should.